Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are in the world, we want to welcome you to today's webinar, Agile Marketing, Creating a New Generation of Digital Experiences. Today's presentation is brought to you by CMSwire and Crownpeak. I'm Tom Murphy. I'll be serving as your moderator today. I'm General Manager and Editorial Director for Simpler Media Group, the publishers of CMSwire. I'd like to go over our agenda today. We have 5 minutes for introductions, about 35 minutes with Anjali Yakkundi, Neela Paredes, and Stephen Platt. Then we'll have about 15 or 20 minutes for a live Q&A featuring you. We have a few housekeeping notes to go over first. We are taking questions via WebEx. You can use the chat or Q&A modules that you see on the right side of your screen, and I'll go over those in a moment. You can also send in questions at any time during the program to Agile Marketing or at CMSwire. The WebEx chat window on the right side of your screen should be about the middle. You can see a little pull-down arrow if it's not open already. And you'll be able to send questions just to the panelists or to all other people on the call. For the Q&A, you can see the Q&A tab right below it, and you can add your questions there at any time during the presentation, and our producers will get those sorted out, and we'll have those at the end of the program to ask our guests any questions you have. We'll also have some interactive polls in this conversation, and we'd really like you to participate. The polling window will pop up on the lower right side of your screen, in the lower right column, and we'll tell you when there's a polling question so that you can participate. When you do, you'll click your answer, and as shown by the second arrow on your screen, and then click Submit. CMSwire was founded in 2003. We have more than 300 editorial contributors. Many of them are folks like you who are practitioners in the field and interested in these subjects. We publish more than 200 articles a month. We have monthly editorial themes, tweet jams, hangouts, webinars, and other events. Our primary coverage areas are customer experience, digital marketing, social business, enterprise collaboration, and enterprise information management. Crownpeak is the only enterprise-grade multi-tenant SaaS platform that gives digital marketers complete control over their websites and digital assets. Created to provide an alternative to the IT-driven model of on-premise web content management, Crownpeak now includes global hosting, site search, and advanced personalization tools. You can learn more about them at crownpeak.com. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers. Our first will be Anjali Yakkundi. She is an analyst serving the application and development and delivery field, and her research focuses on digital experience delivery, primarily focusing on digital asset management, personalization solutions, site search, and digital experience service providers. She resides in the greater Boston area. Our second speaker will be Neela Paredes. He leads the Zoetis global team focusing on helping marketers manage, analyze, and apply customer data to win, serve, and retain customers. His team also supports business technology professionals seeking to integrate systems and strategies and better leverage technology to deliver business value by embracing the digital ecosystem. He's worked in startups from seed stage to acquisition in various industries. And our third speaker today will be Stephen Platt. He's Crownpeak's marketing director and has built marketing programs in a number of fields, including legal, automotive, and the nonprofit sector. We're now going to pass the baton over to Anjali Yakkundi so that she can begin her presentation.
Great, and thank you, Tom, for the nice introduction. My name is Anjali Yakkundi, and I'm an analyst with Forrester, and I'm primarily focused on this area of delivering digital customer experience. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that opportunity. What is digital customer experience, and why is it such an important opportunity for us today? And I'm going to talk through a little bit of how you can begin to create your strategy around delivering these digital customer experiences, both from an IT perspective and from a marketing perspective. But I thought that first we could take a little trip back in time. This is Sears from 30 or 40 years ago. You can probably recognize the clothing is definitely from a past time. This is how we used to connect with our customers. Our interactions were limited. It's really two channels. It was in-store, print, maybe media. It's very static. The way we looked at customers and the way we engaged with customers was really a one-way street. We were pushing information to them in a static way. I think it's no surprise to any of us on the phone that customer experience has really changed. It's become digital. This isn't new. This isn't shocking to any of us. But I think the juxtaposition is really, really shocking sometimes. We look at the Sears example, and now we look at what retailers are doing now. Organizations like Burberry and Home Depot have really greatly invested in both their mobile and web experiences. I read recently that Home Depot has invested almost $2 billion in revitalizing their IT systems so they can better deliver mobile experiences. This is our new way of customers. This isn't static. This isn't one or two channels anymore. This is all digital. It's engaging. It's interactive. But I think the really exciting part is we think about web and mobile. It's not even just web and mobile anymore. We're bringing digital across channels, even the in-store, in-person experiences, and we're using new, engaging, and cutting-edge technologies. So you can see the pictures here. We're using augmented reality and other new and emerging technologies and techniques. We're thinking beyond just web now. We're thinking of in-store and digitizing the in-store and in-person experience with interactive digital signage, with kiosks, and making the digital experience really pervade all of these different channels. And I know we've talked a lot about retail in the past few slides, but this goes way beyond retail and way beyond just an in-store experience. We see other organizations doing this as well. People like financial services. So this is an example from Citibank. Citibank has invested particularly in digitizing their customer support, a key area for customer engagement. They've invested in this by investing in their Twitter accounts, their social media strategy, so they can engage not just on those traditional channels, not just on customer service when you make a phone call to a customer service representative. Now you can tweet. Now you can chat. It's becoming digital. All of these ways to engage with your customers is becoming digital. And it's not even just B2C. So we saw retail and financial services. This isn't just a B2C concern. So for those of you who are on the phone or from B2B company, this is becoming increasingly important for you as well. DocuSign, for example, is a B2B company, technology vendor who's doing digital transaction management, e-signature. If any of you bought a house recently or started a new job, you probably signed your contracts using DocuSign. DocuSign decided that digital marketing and digital customer experience was going to be a key area for investment, and they replatformed both their web and their mobile experience. They invested in new, modern customer engagement technologies to deliver contextual, cross-channel experiences. This is a great example of not just a B2C company, but a B2B company, a company we don't always think of and is investing in customer experience, really making a true commitment. So why is this important? I think this is our real opportunity. It's not just delivering customer experience, but it's making and centering our business around a customer-first attitude and a customer-centric attitude. It's no longer just business first anymore. We saw all of these different companies who have started by thinking customer first, everyone from DocuSign to Burberry to Home Depot to Citibank. Our opportunities to start this new customer-centric culture and customer-centric business. This is because it's what we've entered what Forrester calls the age of the customer. So we used to be in the age of manufacturing, where mass manufacturing was really the key competitive differentiation. Then it was distribution. Then it was the age of information. But that's no longer manufacturing, distribution, information. This isn't going to be our key source of competitive differentiation anymore. Now our key source of competitive differentiation is going to be the customer and our customer centricity. This is why this is what we call the age of the customer. And it's really the real source of competitive differentiation, because you can see that the organizations who are investing in this have begun to outperform organizations that are not considered customer experience leaders. So this is some data from Forrester and Watermark Consulting. What it is it's based on Forrester's Customer Experience Index, where we rate companies on how they've performed on their customer experience based on utility, ease of use, enjoyability. We've rated these different companies, and then through Watermark Consulting, we've looked at their stock performance. How have they done? And you can see that the results are staggering. Customer experience leaders have greater stock returns than customer experience laggards. And it's not by a small margin. They've greatly outperformed the market and greatly outperformed customer experience laggards. So you can see with this data, this is your key source of competitive differentiation, and it truly affects your bottom line. So I thought I'd stop first and start with our first poll question. If Tom, you can get that geared up.
Thank you very much, Anjali. I'm afraid I had some of those Sears clothes back in the 70s, and it brought back some haunting memories. We want to go to our first polling question. I know our producer is bringing that up even as we speak. We'll see that in just a moment. And that's going to be on the lower right side of your screen. I'll take this opportunity to remind you, if you have any questions or answers during this period, we'd like to have you do that through the Q&A window on the right side of the screen. There's our first polling question. Everybody see that on your right side of your screen. How would you rate the digital experience that your organization delivers today? How would you rate the digital experience that your organization delivers today? We have 4 choices there. Please pick one of those and hit the little submit button on the lower right side of your screen. If everybody would just take a moment to do that, that would be great. And while we're tabulating those results, I'm going to ask Anjali, where do you think people will come in on this? Do you think they'll come in around good or excellent or average?
Yeah, so that's a great question.
People say poor.
Yeah, I don't think many people will say poor. Typically, we see people say good. What I think is interesting, though, and I think this is what we'll learn a little bit further on, is a lot of people kind of say they have great, they have a customer experience strategy, they deliver great customer experiences, but they don't have an actual customer experience strategy. So it's a really interesting phenomenon. Whenever I'm talking to clients, I'll say, okay, do you have a customer experience strategy? And they'll say, yeah, of course I do. They'll say, what is it? And they can't articulate it. So it's interesting. I think they'll probably come out around average or good, but I think we can do a lot more to make it excellent. And I think part of that is going to be how you're creating a cohesive, consistent digital experience strategy that bridges both IT and marketing.
Right. Well, the poll has ended now, and we're waiting for the results to be tabulated. They'll be posted on your right side. Interesting, a little bit lower than average. We've got about a third of the people didn't answer at all, but the ones who did, the heaviest answer was an average, 41%, 21% were good. So about 3 and 5 thought they were average or good. Okay, Anjali, I think it's time for your next slide, and we can go on with the presentation.
Great. So I think, a lot of us said that it's hard, right, to deliver digital customer experiences. And I think it's hard, and we saw that with a lot of you saying you had an average customer experience at best. It's because it's hard. Your customers are digital omnivores. They're always connected. They're always addressable. Your customers are accessing digital channels multiple times a day, so frequent accessors of content and experiences. They're often connected on multiple devices, so many of you know the phenomenon known as second screen. I bet many of you on the phone are connected on a laptop and maybe a tablet and a phone all at once. And you can see that these always addressable customers often own at least 3 connected devices. And they're online from multiple locations. So it's not just, not just kind of from a desk or from a home office anymore. Your customers are constantly connected while on the go, while in public transportation. If you're in retail, what's scary is that your customer is connected when you're in the store, and they're probably looking up your competitor while they're in your store. So this is your always addressable customer. And my guess is that a lot of us put average because this is a hard thing to do. How can you address your customer in an omni-channel way that's relevant and contextual to their current situation when they're online all the time, when they have multiple devices, and then they're always connected from different locations? So this is a difficult challenge for most organizations. And I think this is why we see this stock performance for those who are customer experience leaders is truly that much greater. When your customers are always connected and they're those digital omnivores, you have to sustain their attention. And those firms that can sustain a customer's attention with these more relevant, better experiences are going to gain a key source of competitive advantage. Because if you don't gain that customer's attention, you won't be able to hold on to that customer. They're going to immediately go to your competitor who's going to be able to give them that smarter, more relevant experience. So this is our opportunity. And as we saw in the poll, this is going to be hard to do. And it's going to require a true transformation from both marketing and IT. So let's talk about that. Marketing, let's start with marketing first. Marketing, we traditionally thought of marketing as customer acquisition. How are you going to acquire the customer? And that's it. Now it's going to be about more than that. Customer experience really encompasses the entire customer experience life cycle, customer life cycle. It's more than customer acquisition. So it's about how your customers discover, evaluate, buy, access content and experiences, use your products and services. How do they get support? And crucially, how do they re-engage with you? Because you don't want them to leave this customer lifecycle. You want them to continue to re-engage with your firm. So first, we're going to have to think of marketing in a different way. It's going to be around the customer lifecycle, not customer acquisition. Not just customer acquisition, excuse me. And then I think marketing goals are going to change. It's going to center more around customer engagement. So if we remember from those first slides I showed you, it's not just going to be around customer, your business goals or your business metrics. Everything's going to center around how you're engaging with customers. So before we thought of customer experience or marketing in terms of campaigns. Now we're going to think of that in terms of customer engagement and customer interactions. We're no longer going to target our customers, push our views onto the customers. We're going to actively engage with customers. We're not going to center everything around media schedules. Instead, we're going to center our life cycles and the way we're engaging with customers around customer moments. We're not just going to show relevant messaging. We're going to provide utility to a customer based on their context and their current situation. We're going to be useful to the customer. What does that customer need right now? And we're not just going to think of transactions. We're also going to think of transactions in terms of value exchanges. This is another way to build a long-term relationship with your customer, build loyalty, brand recognition. This is going to go far beyond just customer acquisition. It's really how you're engaging with those customers and how you're interacting with customers. In order to do that, IT is going to need to change as well. We used to think of IT as this kind of thinking of back-end infrastructure, back-office applications. Now we're going to need an IT group that's more forward-thinking, something that focuses more on front-office technologies, our customer-facing applications like web content management, e-commerce platforms, campaign management. Going to focus more on these front-office technologies. And they're going to do this not in that slow, disciplined way that we used to, but we're going to think of more agile, faster sourcing and deployment models. This often is done via new delivery models, so cloud-based infrastructure and application. For some of these areas, we've been pretty slow to adopt cloud-based infrastructure, but when appropriate, this can help speed up and give us greater agility. We're also going to think more around how we're going to tolerate risk. Traditionally, IT has thought about security, stability, and we've been very risk averse. I think our forward-thinking IT groups, not like we're going to take risk left and right, but we need to have higher tolerance of risk. We need to have a higher tolerance for experimentation and innovation in order to better fit our marketer peers' needs. And so, I think we've heard a lot in the press and the media, is it that IT is from Mars and business and marketing is from Venus? I think we've done a lot to start bridging this goal. And I think, a lot of us have already started to think of marketing beyond the customer acquisition. And maybe our IT group is slowly coming around. Where I think we need to, so it's not quite that IT is from Mars and marketing is from Venus, but I think it's really where we need to do better is in these shared domains. It's in domains around marketing platforms, digital experience platforms, web content management and e-commerce platforms, front-end development, customer relationship management, customer data management. These shared domains, which fall right in the smack in the middle between marketing and IT, those are where we need to do a better job and where we need to really ramp up and think about our strategies in a more cohesive and more agile manner. So where are you going to get started? We talked a little bit already. What is this imperative? What is digital customer experience? Why is it important? And how you're going to transform your IT and marketing organizations. So how can you get started on your digital experience delivery strategy? The first is that you're going to start with a strategic framework. You're going to start with your vision at the top. Then you're going to set short-term priorities that help guide your long-term vision. And then you're going to start with your people. You're going to lead a cultural transformation within your organization that's customer-centric, that's going to have new roles, and maybe new organizational structures and new partner models. And lastly, and you're going to think of the technology. And technology comes last for a reason. It's because technology, no matter how great of a technology solution you get, if you don't have the vision, priorities, or people in place, that technology can't do anything. So let's start with vision. Your customer experience vision, unsurprisingly, is going to be driven by customer centricity and customer understanding. So if you're thinking of how to start this vision, everything's going to be around the customer. You're going to define, a shared understanding of your users. So you're going to capture information and through personas and customer journeys, and you're going to align that with your business and brand objectives. Lastly, then you're going to prioritize and make the case for critical touch points. You're not going to be able to do all of this at once. Once you've understood your customer, plotted customer journeys, you're not going to be able to do this at once. So you're going to look at which key customer touch points are the most sticky, which are the ones that are most salient to a customer or most important, and you're going to prioritize those. Then you're going to align your priorities. Your priorities should help drive these long-term gains and these long-term investments that help guide your vision. So for example, if your long-term vision is this omni-channel customer engagement, which I think for most of us, this is going to be one of the top long-term business goals we have, is connecting with our customers across channels, we're going to think of our short-term priorities. It might be to build great APIs or develop mobile applications. Maybe it's going to be coming up with a foundation from an e-commerce or web content management system. And maybe one of our long-term goals is to promote deeper customer engagement throughout the customer lifecycle, to be more relevant, provide more utility to a customer. Maybe our short-term objective then could be how we can better use situational data and customer segmentation, and how can we use more of these contextual cues to understand our customer and recognize our customer and provide a more contextual experience. So this is where our short-term priorities are going to help us build towards this long-term vision. Next is people. This one's probably the most interesting, and I think this is the most challenging one, to be honest, because let's face it, people and cultural issues, those aren't quite as straightforward. You can't create a business documentation. You can't go out and buy this. This is true grassroots, grassroots and top-down needed to be able to deliver these new organizational structures and new culture. So I think there's a lot of different ways we've seen organizations moving. Traditionally, it's been that IT groups have delivered this experience. Marketing and business groups create a strategy and they throw it over the wall to IT. But we're starting to see different models now where IT is more embedded within a marketing group. So marketing technology groups, where technologists are actually embedded within a marketing group so that you can actually deliver experiences with the same people who are creating the customer experience strategy. We've seen other models too, like IT groups who are focused exclusively on marketing and customer-facing applications. These groups work really closely with both their back office IT peers, but also their marketing peers, and directly work with those who are creating the strategy around customer experience. So I think we've seen all of these new and different organizational models that help to deliver. They're working to bring IT and marketing closer together so they can work closer together and deliver. So you don't have to throw projects over the wall anymore. Instead, we're now working closer together. And this is going to be challenging because it's not just an organizational structure issue. It's clearly a cultural issue of moving IT away from thinking of back office and security and stability issues, but looking at these newer technologies, looking at different deployment models like cloud deployment, looking at ways of agile to deliver projects faster, like agile development models. Lastly is going to be the other last issue of people is going to be our partner models. So I think most of us are working with agencies or systems integrators to help us deliver these experiences. Our new partner model is not going to think of this as outsourcing anymore. We're really going to see our partner models as true partners. We're going to, depending on our maturity, we're going to use them differently. So organizations earlier in maturity use these partners to kind of do more of the nuts and bolts, development, design, hosting, things like that. But as we mature, we're going to start to use our partners in a different way. We're going to start to outsource, but we're going to be more strategic. We're going to really look for them at our partners for inspiration, not the nuts and bolts work, because we can do that ourselves as we mature, but really look for them to help inspire us, to help us innovate, to think about new technologies that we might not know much about. Think about innovative new techniques like responsive design is one we've seen the past few years becoming more and more popular to work with our partners with. So we're going to think and rethink our partner models as we mature as well. We're going to look less to outsourcing and more to look at inspiration, innovation, and emerging technologies, and look for our partners to help us in those areas. And then last is technology. I think there's a million vendors out there who are going to tell you that they are the customer experience or the digital experience vendor. The reality, though, is that you can't buy customer experience in a box. If it was that easy, more of us would have said we deliver excellent customer experiences. We have all these other issues around our vision, our priorities, and our strategy, and frankly, no one can do this. No one can sell you customer experience in a box right now. That's because there are many solutions and many functionality points that require us to help manage, deliver, and measure digital customer experience. So if we think of all the management capabilities we need content and data services, we need repositories, we need business process management, workflow, authoring, campaign management, marketing resource management, multilingual tools, et cetera. We need a lot of tools just to do that, just to manage our experiences. When it comes to delivering our experiences, we need capabilities like presentation tools, segmentation and targeting, ad serving, social, transactions. For those of you who are in financial services, banking, retail, commerce-driven types of organizations, you're going to have a huge transactional component here. You're going to have ID and authentication. And then you're going to have measurement capabilities. You're going to need things like A/B and multivariate testing, analytics across channels like web, mobile, and social. You're going to need dashboards so that your marketers can actually visualize and understand the data that's coming in. So you're going to need all of these different capabilities. and it's going to have many different packaged applications make up this digital experience ecosystem. It's not just one vendor who can do all of this or one solution. There are a lot of different solutions out there, and these are just a few examples. There are many, many more. Things like product information management, digital asset management, campaign management, web content management, commerce, analytics, testing and optimization. These are all different solutions that make up this digital experience ecosystem, and these are just a small segment of them. When you think about it, this isn't going to be that you're going to buy it all from one vendor, but I also don't think it's going to be a best-of-breed story. Instead, I think you're going to buy some of these, and what we're seeing from organizations and clients that we talk to every day is that organizations are buying these in packages, so things that go together. So for example, your commerce-centric technologies, like commerce platforms, product information management, or recommendation engines, those might be a buy by themselves. Things like web content management, site search typically go together. Maybe campaign management and marketing resource management go together. And maybe your analytics tools go together. So it's going to be a middle-of-the-road approach. You're not going to buy this all from one vendor, but you're also not going to go with a purely best-of-breed approach. Just think about how much integration would be involved if you did go with a best-of-breed approach. Instead, you're going to selectively source things together as it makes sense, and then tie the rest of these technologies in via integration. And integration is really between these tools is going to be a key area of investment. So where can you get started now? I've told you a lot. I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. I've told you about why customer experience is important. I've talked to you a little bit about how IT and marketing are going to transform. And we've talked about how you're going to, your framework for your digital customer experience strategy, your vision, your priorities, your people, and lastly, your technology. So what can you get started on today? First, I would challenge each of you, when you go back to your desk in a few, 30 minutes and 40 minutes, to identify one key customer touch point that requires that more personal touch, where you can be more engaging and more customer-centric. This is going to be your starting point, your low-hanging fruit, somewhere where you can begin to think customer first. Once you identify that, think about the technology solutions that you already own that can help you solve this problem. How can you do this now with the tools you already have? Once you do that, then start to assess some of the gaps and areas where you can deliver these better contextual omni-channel experiences. So how can you solve that customer problem with new tools? Think big, think beyond what you already have. So this is areas like how are you going to deliver experiences? Well, it's a pretty typical area in a more personal and contextual manner. That's a pretty typical area where a lot of people have holes. So think about your technology gaps there and identify that area and vendors who can help you fill those gaps. And lastly, become a change agent in your organization. Start small. Think of these quick gains that you can get. So think of these small customer touch points or these lingering customer issues, something maybe that you've heard customers complain about, or things that you know that if you were a customer, you would want this to be better. So start small and get those quick wins, because then your peers will notice. You're going to do this because you need to drive this cultural shift within your organization. This isn't going to be easy to get those people, and I told you that a couple slides ago. The people issues are going to be the most challenging. So with these quick wins, you'll start to get noticed, and you can become that change agent within your organization to promote these customer-first values and promote better collaboration between IT and marketing. So with that, I've given you four ways that you can start tomorrow. And with that, I'll give it over to Neela, who's going to actually give you his experience with digital customer experience. So Neela?
I think Neela's on mute right now. Neela, you can start anytime.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
That's great, Neela. You're on. Yes, you're on.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for everybody for joining. Anjali, that was great. The last 4 points. I was reminded me of about last year in the springtime, about where Zoetis, or what we had just launched as Zoetis, and where we were as an organization. But before we get there, I'm going to come back to those 4 points because it was really interesting, and it actually ties in nicely with the small, a quick snapshot in terms of, what happened in the last year. Just for all of you guys to know, Zoetis we're the world's largest animal healthcare company. We were formerly a business unit of Pfizer, known as Pfizer Animal Health. Right now, we're about a $4 billion business. We have over 10,000 employees. And for me, it's a really exciting place to be, in large part because there are some changes. And part of the reason why I stayed with this business unit was in large part because you're able to influence the changes. So for me, it was a very exciting time to join, be a part of Zoetis. And it's kind of funny, if we go back and think about the vision, right, one of the key things that the business, my management had asked me is just like, well, and working with our marketers really was just how do we continue to roll out new sites and capabilities quickly, and critical pieces, because we were using a piece of technology that was very IT intensive, and if you remember in one of her slides, you had these 3 bands, right, where it had .NET, Java, and then there was SaaS, and then there's the marketing side. If you remember those slides, the interesting part about it is we were down at the bottom from an IT perspective, right? So what we needed to get up is higher up the value chain in terms of what we want to do from a marketing standpoint, and also as a technology function, right? So it was a bit of how do we make it easier for our marketers to do marketing on the web, because we didn't think this should be hard. And also at the same time, of course, is, how do we build a platform that lets me sleep at night, right? And how do we make that infrastructure in place? Now, despite the fact that we're over 10,000 people, I have a team of 2, and, my remit is global. So I was like, how am I going to solve that problem? But it was it was a dual purpose that we, 2 reasons we had to solve for. And obviously we had to make sure that we were keeping up with the market, our industry peers, right? And we wanted to go further than that. So those are some of the challenges, and it was a good one. I think if you go back to some of the other areas around change agent, I partner with my business colleagues, my marketers. I had 2 great partners that I worked with. We went through a process, and we really asked ourselves to rethink how we did this. It wasn't, this works at another large company, let's try that. We actually challenged ourselves to think about that differently. It's not easy either, and the path there was fun, though. So first things, in terms of just getting those quick wins, right, you would think that large multinational company like Zoetis would be like, well, we're going to increase the entire series of things that I'd like a marketer would like to do. But we decided, we're going to keep this as simple as possible. We're going to do kind of a lift and shift. So we're going to take our existing sites, move them onto a new platform, reinvigorate the program. People's expectations, prior to this project were like, well, everything goes so slow. How come we can't do anything? There was a lot of our marketers working with outside agencies, that always didn't come up with the best ideas, but they went along with them. And also, of course, you can imagine the spend on that, what an agency will charge you can be quite a bit more than what you would, what something should cost. So the second point there is that we decided that we were even though we were going with lift and shift, we were still going to be opportunistic about what things we could incorporate, right? So one of those things that we did, for instance, is I think I heard Anjali mention responsiveness. We made our sites responsive, which were not previously. For those of you, basically all that meant was like if you looked at our website now on a tablet or a mobile phone, it rendered nicely and not this really itty-bitty website right now. On a screen or on a small screen, but it's a small change, but it was a big change internally. But the focus and the reason why we were opportunistic, but it's a discipline, by the way. It's not. There are no hard and fast rules. But we were, I try to be, and the team tried to be disciplined in how we did that. But the goal and what we started to appreciate as we went down this process and was that we would prioritize things, knowing that with moving to a SaaS-based solution, that we would have the ability to roll out things much quicker rather than something that's on premises or a big, packaged solution, right? And the other side of that, of course, is that for those of you who've worked with SaaS, obviously constantly changes by industry, of course, but they're constantly rolling out new features. And those are some of the things that we thought we could take advantage of, and rather than us thinking about what should be the best things, right? I mean, animal health is not at the cutting edge of marketing, right? Entertainment companies, content companies are further along, right? But we still wanted to be able to grasp the best of breed, right? And be able to say, hey, these are things that are maybe in, techniques that have been being used for a couple of years, let's say 24 months in the market, we want to be able to capitalize on that, right? Not to think of it ourselves. And this goes back to the change, and, previously, it's like a market to be like, I want these 500 things, right? So we needed to change that. And they often looked at technology that way. It's like, if I don't get all my requirements in, I know it's going to be like another year before I see anything come out. So that was one of the things that we were conscious of, and we needed to change. And this goes back to my previous point around the continuous improvement, right? So I think there's a measuring aspect, right? So you can't improve what you don't measure. And one of the things that we've changed is also there is like, well, we decided to at least take high-level measurements of stuff. We'll get better. We appreciate that we're not the most sophisticated company at measuring, but, given the right framework to work, then it certainly is much easier to build that into the culture, right? And so where we are today, it's, the lift and shift, project finished on March 15th. 3 months later, we're in a much better position than we were last year, for sure. And I think there's still a lot of room to grow. But honestly, it's been a really fantastic experience. But if you go back to I think Anjali's last point around, change agent and incorporating, getting those quick wins, I have a different problem than I had last year. So last year it was because we couldn't get stuff out. My problem this year is everybody wants a piece of this pie, right? And that means I got to make more pie. But, it's sort of like, because we move things so much faster, there is far more, we've woken up a lot of demand across the enterprise. So I think of it as a high-class problem to have, right? It's a problem that you'd want to have, people wanting to work with you. So some quick facts in terms of where we are. We went from, launching sites that took us 2 months to 2 weeks. We reduced costs tremendously. So these are all things that, a CFO would be excited about. I'm excited not because it's so much about the cost savings, but it just means that whatever monies we would have spent, we're reinvesting in marketing campaigns. So there's a good news there. In terms of stability, our response times have been great. Our response time to the sites are great rather. We have, we're covered in case there's another Hurricane Sandy, in a much better position than we were previously. And for those of you on the Northeast who went through Hurricane Sandy, you'll remember a lot of the power outages on a personal level. And then, of course, you can imagine that a lot of data centers across the eastern seaboard were also taken out. And now, like I said, this is everybody wants a piece. We're changing things. We're rolling out, new capabilities. So I tend to think of the program having been successful across 2 dimensions. One is there's much greater capability where it's already existed, and then geographic expansion as well. So, it's been a good year. And I think we're up to our 2nd poll, if I'm not mistaken here. Tom, is that
yes,
a good time for our second poll?
We are. Yes, we are up to our 2nd poll. Thank you all. Better get my microphone back on there. And our second question is a great presentation, by the way. It's really interesting to hear how this has been working at Zoetis. It's really great information. So our second question is, how long does it take your organization to launch new websites? Something that you touched on, Neela, in your presentation. And the answer choices are less than a month, 1 to 3 months, 4 to 6 months, or more than 6 months. I'd like to get everybody in our audience to participate in this now, so please choose one of those answers and click the submit button on the lower right. While you're doing that, I'll just remind you that your questions are welcome. You can go to the Q&A tab on the right column and ask a question at any time during the presentation, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. We have about 15 minutes left in the presentation. Neela, I know you gave some clues in your presentation. What do you think the average person in the audience is going to say here? 1 to 3 months or 4 to 6 months?
My guess would be 1 to 3 months.
I'm guessing that too. I'd be surprised if it was much longer than that, but some folks do take much longer than that.
The interesting part is that in a regulated environment, sometimes it will take longer, not because of the actual work as much as the approvals that it has to go through.
Okay, well, let's give the answers quickly because I know we want to get to Stephen's presentation. I think we're just waiting for the results to come up now. It should be, there we go. We got a lot of people didn't answer, but the dominant answers were 1 to 3 months or 4 to 6 months, which will tie there, I'd say. So with that, let's go on with the presentation. Neela, do you have an additional slide for us here, or are we going to go to Stephen?
I think we're going to Stephen now.
Okay. Stephen, I think it's your cue, sir.
Great. Let's see here. So, Stephen Platt, thanks again, everyone, for joining today. I run marketing here at Crownpeak, the platform that Neela just used to change digital marketing at Zoetis. And I just wanted to, I'll be really quick here, just go through what we see as the marketer's challenge as it relates to delivering a great digital experience and how we see people solving that. So, as digital marketers, we are dealing with a new type of customer. Our customers today have options, and they won't stick around for bad digital experiences. It's ranking higher and higher against even the product in terms of the impact that'll have on whether a customer even decides to stay around. So we've got to pay a lot more attention, as Anjali said earlier on, to our customers' experience and prioritize giving them great ones. In the middle of that, marketing has a changing role, and as marketers, we are responsible for enabling a great digital experience across an increasing number of digital touch points. And this is rolling into areas that marketing really didn't get involved in before. It's much taller orders. It means that marketing now has a responsibility for people's experiences on IT-managed portals or different line of business applications. All kinds of things that can bubble up through the website or other digital assets. And it's putting IT in a position with some of these older tools where IT is operating with a spend to save cost center mentality, marketing has a spend to earn or ROI mentality, and the wrong tools or the wrong priorities and team structures can really put the two groups at odds with each other instead of making the strategic partners that they need to be in order to deliver the kind of experiences that will really win today. And IT finds itself oftentimes trapped by shrinking budgets, maintaining some of their legacy systems that are expensive. It leaves marketing handcuffed and unable to do great digital campaigns across their websites and their digital channels. Spread out sort of in an organizational tool chart right here with the gray representing IT and the blue representing marketing. You have a lot of these portals, online functions that IT is managing, as well as websites that marketing may be having an input into but are really controlled and managed and operated by IT with limited input from marketing. So the solution that we see our customers using is really to replace all those different points with a web experience management platform that can give marketing control over the look, the feel, the content of each of these properties, while IT can sit back and not have to get involved every time marketing wants to do something. It enables the team also to leverage first, second, and third-party data. So with the proper tools connected, the marketers can leverage cross-website properties, information about the customer that might exist in IT-managed applications, things that they may already have from the customer, or third-party data from a data management platform or other sources. So Crownpeak, at an organizational level connects all those pieces. At an individual user level gives digital marketers and their teams the ability to create personalized web pages and test targeted content without using IT resources. So it kind of cuts that chain and gives marketers that ability. DAM functionality that enables centralized management of all their assets, solving another enterprise problem. And as Anjali talked about earlier, as marketing practitioners, we're stitching together a lot of different technologies to deliver a great digital experience. And Crownpeak comes with over 60 pre-built integrations with everything from Marketo to Box, so that marketers can plug in any data, any content they have on other platforms directly onto their website. Listed out here in terms of timeline, reducing the procurement and setup timelines, and a lot of this is what Neela and his team were able to deploy at Zoetis with Crownpeak. And our SaaS architecture really eliminates a lot of the steps that have to be taken in order to launch an enterprise-grade site on-premise. So over here on the top, we have the steps that would be required for an on-premise web content management model versus Crownpeak SaaS delivery. We've seen customers go from 9-month launch times to launch times in just over 6 weeks. We're very proud of that. So that really concludes my presentation. Happy to talk afterwards specifically to anybody who's interested in Crownpeak and how that might help. And I think I'll turn it back over for some Q&A.
Sounds great, Steve. And I'm about to get on back here, and we'll switch over to our final slides. It is time for our Q&A question. I'm going to go ahead and start asking these while waiting for the control. There we go. The first one is to Anjali. It concerns the idea of platform versus best of breed versus strong integration. The listener asked, I think integration stories are becoming increasingly important. What's Forrester's position on what vendors and buyers should prioritize?
Sure, that's a great question, and I think this is something that we've been hearing a lot from our clients over the past 12 months. Do you go with a purely best-of-breed approach, or do you go and buy this all from one vendor? And we talked about this a little bit in the presentation. I think you're going to buy certain capabilities together and then integrate. The rest will be an integration story. So I think when you're thinking of this integration story and you're looking at vendors, it's really important to prioritize new, modern, updated code bases. Looking at platforms that are open APIs are going to be important. But I think it's going to go even a step beyond API level integration. You're also going to want to look to vendors who have packaged integrations with some of your key technologies. So no vendor is going to have packaged integration with everything you already have. But maybe there are a few key areas, like if you're looking for web content management, for example, perhaps there's going to be a certain key integration that you're going to want to look for a packaged integration between your web CMS and your CRM, so you can easily access customer data. Or maybe your web content management, your digital asset management, or your web content management, your e-commerce platform. So when possible, I think, look at your tools and your technologies, look for those open APIs and open platforms, but also look for packaged integrations when you can.
Okay, great answer. Next question is going to go to Stephen. Can a SaaS solution really meet today's security and regulatory needs for enterprise customers? We encounter quite a few doubts about that. Any thoughts on that?
Also, great question, and that's most people when people are looking at something for their web content management needs. A lot of times they expect if they're in an enterprise environment with regulatory concerns that they're going to need to have something on site, managed and closely guarded with IT. But the opposite is actually true. Crownpeak, by virtue of our AWS partnership and network that we operate on, as well as the different audits that we've gone through as a company and as a platform, are able to ship with some of the, without going into details, SSAE 16 and different audits that are really difficult in a lot of cases for internal IT teams. So surprisingly, in response to that question, a lot of our customers particularly in the regulated spaces, banking, pharma, some global enterprises in those sectors picked Crownpeak because of the security in large part that we were able to offer. So, and happy to discuss it in a lot more detail at a different level after the call.
Good answer, Steve. Nice and passion. Neela, I'm going to let you start this, and then if other people want to give it, they can answer too. How do you most commonly see better digital assets or better experience management having a top or bottom line impact? In other words, how's that affecting bottom line average measurement?
I'm sorry, Tom. It was kind of hard to hear you. Could you say that just again one more time?
Sure. Let me repeat that. Microphone. See. The question was, how can you best measure top or bottom line impact from better digital assets or better?
Yeah. Okay. It's an interesting question because you know, a marketer is thinking top line, right? How do I grow my revenue? Finance, IT departments looking, how do I lower my costs? So it's kind of you have to look at it two different ways, right? So top line says, if for a campaign that I did or I ran or experience that I'm providing, am I growing my two ways to look at that, right? Am I growing the revenue, right? So sorry, let's say it all over. Am I growing revenue? And you can grow revenue in one of two ways, obviously, right? Am I getting a bigger share of the existing market, or am I making the entire market bigger, right? So there's two ways. That's top line. And you have to measure that, obviously, to a campaign that you've done. So the tricky part there is, how do you make sure that you attribute a specific dollar amount to a campaign? And a lot of times that it requires some IT departments, right, to make that link. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, though, is what amount of spend that I do previously outside of an existing platform, and if you include agencies that did some of this development work for you, and am I reducing my costs there, right? So those are kind of two ways to look at it from that standpoint. I think there's a third way, which is the one that I'm fond of, but it says, for the same amount of money that I spent last year, did I do more, right? So that's an optimization play, which is not really driving revenue one way or the other. Well, influences revenue, but it's more of a quality, a softer capability piece, right? That sometimes is hard to sell internally, but is where I think, because nobody wants to say I'm going to give you 10% of my budget, right? But on the other hand, you say, I'm going to keep my budget and do more with it. Now you're just being more efficient with the funds allocated. So that's how we look at it. That's certainly how I look at it in terms of how we measure that. And the great part is that, just a couple of things to consider here, right, is as you get on various SaaS platforms, whether it's for marketing automation or web content or your analytics around it, right, for a multinational company, it becomes much easier to get that kind of same standard data for all markets or business units, right? Even if it's not multinational. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well to figure it out once, and then it's sort of like, okay, we know what the model works and how the data hangs together. Let's figure out how it maps then to each business unit.
Okay, great. Now I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Am I clear? Is there no sound on? Am I audio?
Yep. We hear you perfect.
Okay, great. Wanted to make sure. Our next question is from Sandy Crawley to all panelists. Let's start with Anjali on this. Our enterprise is a nonprofit professional membership organization, and the majority of our members seem to be very pleased with our service, but we have a reactionary rump who resist change and are extremely vocal. Any recommendations on how to sell web experience improvements to the naysayers?
Sure, that's a great question. First, I would show them that data, the Forrester data with Watermark Consulting, where you can truly see, from a numbers perspective, that people who have better customer experience perform better. And I think even with a nonprofit organization, better customer experience could mean more donors or more money coming in. You can see that both kind of for the for-profit and the nonprofit or public sector, this holds true. So first I would just show them this data. This is raw numbers. It's hard to argue with that. But then I would start, with that last point that I made in the recommendations, which is start small. Gain those quick wins by smaller projects, smaller initiatives where you can show tangible results. Here are ways in which not just did we get money from donors, for example, but how did we engage with them better? How did we build up a relationship and engagement with them? So start small with those smaller wins that might not require quite as much of investment, but they're starting small and they can show tangible results. And you have to then kind of build this trust with these naysayers. And I think this is within most organizations we talk to. There's always someone who's thinks that this is too expensive, or that this is time consuming, or this isn't an important priority. I think though it's gaining those quick wins is when you'll be able to build this legacy, and you can't argue with these results as you start seeing them.
Great answer. And actually, our time is run out. We're just about a minute over. Do either of the other panelists want to tackle that question before we close out the show? Steve, you want to say something about winning over the naysayers?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I think, getting the whole group to buy into things is really important, as Anjali was saying. And, I've talked again and again. I would just say, Sandy Crawley, I'm not sure, where you sit in the organization, but I've heard from, marketing team again that there's this notion that technology is going to marketing. And there's a Gartner stat that came out everyone's talked about. Sorry to bring Gartner into a Forrester webinar, but in 2017 the CIO or the CMO will be spending more on technology than the CIO. And there's a lot of different people who are talking about marketing going off and buying and doing its own thing. What we've really seen is that there needs to be marketing and IT need to be partners in this, and that relationship, more so than probably any others in that room of different decision makers, is going to be really key. So, this is, whether Sandy Crawley or anybody else has this problem, if it's in a marketing role or an IT role, I would say find those, other decision makers that you can really partner with in that other organization. And, it's the whole structure that, going back to what Anjali said, it's, people first, the technology is the last piece. So really, finding those alliances, seeing how they're going to work together, and then finding the technologies that really allow those two groups to work together would really be key within that. My 2 bits.
Great answer, Steve. We're going to go to our final slide here now. If our producer will put up that last slide on the moderator section. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I've been recording this webinar, and we will make it available on CMSwire.com in the next few days. We'll also have a follow-up story about it. I want to thank Anjali from Forrester, and Neela from Zoetis, and Steve from Crownpeak for being with us today and sharing their great ideas. I want to thank Crownpeak for sponsoring today's event. Please stay tuned for upcoming webinars from CMSwire. We're always glad to have you aboard, and I want to thank you wherever you are in the world tonight. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. This is Tom Murphy signing off.